is nonpartisan.
Can you tell
That's
them
our
5
vote.
till?
Yeah.
Alright. You guys want to now to it? I don't know why I put it.
Okay,
We'll talk
can
on
we
that
get everybody in
later.
their
Don't
seats,
smell my
please?
breath.
5 till. 5 minutes till.
Good. Hello, my name is Arturo Uribe. Thank you for being with us tonight for the Las Cruces Election Candidates Forum. We're the informal group, the Citizens for Nonpartisan Civic Engagement. And today we are here at the Las Cruces Channel Studio, and we will be live on the Las Cruces Channel Facebook page, also streaming on Instagram and YouTube. We'll be monitoring Facebook so that the viewing public can have an opportunity to also participate in live time asking questions. So we encourage the questions from the viewing community. So thank you for that. I just want to also say that we are abiding by the state's rules for gathering in safe places. This is a COVID certified safe sets studio space. We've been certified. We have also all come in with our masks on until we are seated and mic'd. We have a partition between our candidates and our commentators, and so we are abiding by the COVID standards that the state has put on us. So today I would like to say we have the candidates for the Las Cruces School Board District 1 with Mr. Abelardo Balcazar and Mr. Ray Jaramillo. Our commentators are mothers and community activists, Miss Kelly Bloomfield and Priscilla Della O. With that, I just want to give an opportunity for the candidates to introduce themselves, and then we'll allow our commentators to introduce themselves. I also want you to know that we're doing this because of the opportunities that aren't there this election cycle because of the COVID, where we can come together and meet the candidates and ask them questions. Normally, we do this in our community centers, our churches, and our fire stations. And I look forward to going back to where we can come together as a community and meet the candidates and ask those candidates who are asking for our votes so that we have an opportunity to meet them and ask questions. With that, I'd like to go ahead and give this opportunity to Mr. Jaramillo.
Thank you, I appreciate that. My name is Ray Jaramillo. I am currently the Las Cruces Public Schools Board of Education, the president. This is my 4th year. I was elected in 2016. I am an early childhood educator. I've been working with young children for 26 years. My background is in education. I have an undergrad from New Mexico State University. My master's degree is at Erickson Institute, and I'm currently seeking my doctoral degree in early childhood education as well. I am been appointed by 2 governors to sit on the Early Learning Advisory Council, where my job is to look at early childhood legislation and then give some advice. So I appreciate the time here today. I also want to thank Mr. Balcazar for his passion. This is like the third time we've actually been together, and I know that he has, and we share that passion of working with young children and working with students of Las Cruces. So I want to thank him for being here today, and thank you guys for hosting this.
Right on. Mr. Balcazar.
Thank you, Arturo. My name is Abelardo Balcazar, and I'm originally from San Antonio, Texas. After high school, I joined the United States Navy. I served 20 years, retiring in 2009. I've been a resident of Las Cruces since then. I'm a graduate of New Mexico State University with a bachelor's in individualized studies, a minor in business administration. Oh, sorry. And I currently work for the city of Las Cruces in the risk management department as a safety specialist. I'm a father and a grandfather, and I also thank Mr. Jaramillo for the opportunity to engage with him and talk about the issues concerning our students in Las Cruces Public Schools.
All right, thank you very much. And with that, I'd like to introduce our commentators. Ms. Bloomfield.
Hi, my name is Kelly Bloomfield. I am the mother of 5 children in the school district. I have a senior and a sophomore and an 8th grader and a 7th grader and a 2nd grader. I'm also the founder of a not-for-profit parent advocacy organization called Families Advocating for Change in Education, and I'm happy to be here.
All right. Thank you. So we're going to give you guys each, oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Delo.
Hi, my name is Priscilla De Mello. I'm a native Las Cruces. I'm also a mother. I have a son that's currently attending New Mexico State University. I work within the executive search realm, and I'm happy to be here, and I love our community.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, with that, like I said, these forums are for us, the voters, to meet and ask questions of the candidates. The commentators I invited are folks that I know that are involved in the community, that have been talking with other parents, with other residents, with other voters, and so I know they're carrying the voice of many others, but that doesn't mean that you, the viewing public on the Las Cruces Facebook channel, can ask questions also, and I encourage that. And with that, we're going to go ahead and thank our sponsors, which is the Southwest Organizing Project, 3A Research, and the Las Cruces channel. So with that, we'll go ahead and start with our first question. Ms. Bloomfield.
We'll start with an icebreaker. Why are you running? What moment or set of moments did the call to serve in this capacity make itself known to you?
Mr. Jaramillo.
So I've been asked that, Kelly, thank you. I've been asked that question a lot, and every time I answer it, it's a little bit different because there's so many things that have brought me to this point. But being a parent, right off, I guess that was the moment. I had 5 years before my children entered the public school system. I went to my first PTO meeting at Jornada Elementary School, and on the second PTO meeting, I was elected the PTO president. And so I've been involved, not just the last 4 years, but I've been involved in public education and really being a voice for children. Of course, my children, but the children in their classroom, the children in the lunchroom, the children on the playground, and making sure that I was an advocate for them so for many years. The reason why I'm running is because I feel that I still have children in the public schools. My daughter's a senior at Centennial High School. My son graduated or kind of graduated in 2020. And so, it was an honor to be a part of navigating through those difficult times. And these last 4 years have been absolutely crazy and challenging. And I think I owe it to my community to continue advocating for the children of Las Cruces. And, with the experience and also with my educational background, I think that I bring a unique set of skills and a unique lens to the Las Cruces Public Schools Board of Education, which is early childhood education, my background. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Balcazar.
Yes, what made me decide to run for Las Cruces Public Schools Board of Education is the impact that my education had on my life. And I remember I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, in the inner city, in a very difficult neighborhood with a lot of challenges. And I can honestly say that the education I received helped me, achieve what I have done so far in my life. It helped me, do a 20-year career in the military. It helped me raise a family. It helped me contribute to my community. It helped me in my careers at White Sands Missile Range and currently at the city of Las Cruces. I just want the children of Las Cruces to have that same high quality education that I enjoyed when I went through public education. All my adult children also graduated from Las Cruces schools, 2 from Centennial, 1 from Las Cruces High School. Now I have a grandchild, nieces and nephews in the schools, and I'm just concerned that they're not getting the education that they deserve, and that we're not doing as much as a community to ensure that they have the education to make them successful in college, career, and their futures.
All right, thank you. Ms. Delo.
What issues do you believe your district needs to address in its academic program and offerings? What changes would you recommend?
Mr. Balcazar.
Currently, I'm very concerned about the proficiency rates in the schools in my district. We have 4 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and a high school that have student proficiency rates in reading, writing, math, and science that are below 50%. We can do better. We need to focus on those academics because The reading, writing, math, and science is the foundation of any good education. We need to put the resources in the classroom that's going to help students have better proficiency rates in there. In addition, we also need, in my opinion, we need to bring the trades back. Focus on the trades. We have, I can tell you, being an employee of the City of Las Cruces, in our utilities department, it's a challenge. It's a constant challenge of getting young people to consider a career in the trades. We need to encourage that in our schools. And besides that, ensure that we're appropriately focusing our budget on achieving those types of goals.
Thank you. Mr. Jaramillo.
I want to make sure I answer your question right, so if you wouldn't mind repeating it.
Of course. What issues do you believe our district needs to address in its academic program and offerings? What changes would you recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. And Mr. Balcazar brought up some great things that he says that we need to be doing that we're already doing. And so we have people at Oregon Mountain High School that are building a house and working with, we had a huge turnout for our CTE programs and making sure that those things were happening. So I totally agree with him on that. It's happening right now. Also, you know, I think it's important that he mentioned the budget and what we've done over the last year. When I first got on board, you know, we were facing budget crunches. We didn't have to fire any teachers. We were able to navigate those things. So it doesn't matter how much money we have if we don't have the educators in the classroom. So we had to make sure that I helped navigate that with other board members as well. The other thing I wanted to mention is that, you know, we don't, as a board member, don't have direct access to the academics that are happening in the classroom. What we do have is the ability to make sure that our budget is supporting the educators and making sure that they have the necessary tools to be able to do their job. And so that's what a board member does, and they'll do it through policy, and they'll do it through making sure that we have the money is actually getting to the classroom. So like Mr. Balcazar said, you know, I totally agree with that, and it's happening in our district currently.
All right. Thank you very much. Ms. Bloomfield.
A few weeks ago, the Las Cruces Police Officers Association, the police union, made a statement about school safety, and briefly I'm going to read part of this. For example, while many Las Crucens assume that police officers are available to protect our school children by providing a school resource officer in schools, the reality is that today, one officer roves from one school to the next to give the appearance of police protection, but when the officer is roving at one school, other schools are left unprotected. Given the potential threats to our school children which play out in our community on an almost daily basis, this lack of resources is dangerous. What do you plan to do about this dangerous safety issue?
Mr. Jaramillo.
Thanks, Kelly. And absolutely. So I have my daughter's in school. This is definitely a priority of mine. I have to tell you that we recently, I don't know if you guys know this, but we recently had a threat that was a nationwide threat that blew up my phone over the weekend. It blew up my daughter's phone because they knew that her dad was the president of the Las Cruces Public Schools. And to see the fear in my daughter's eyes, to see the fear in my daughter's friend's eyes about a threat that was happening to shoot up a school or that sort of stuff was happening, you know, it really brings the reality of what you just said. And, you know, are our schools safe? And, you know, we like to hope to think that they are. But really what we need to do is make sure that we have the necessary funding. And really that funding is not necessarily coming from our budget, but really the legislature. So we really need to make sure that not only as a school board member we're taking care of what we need to here at a local level, but we also need to be advocates and have the relationships with our senators, our legislatures, and the people that are making decisions to be able to fund that. I mean, they don't fund buses enough. We're short $100,000 a year in buses. We're short money on this, and what we're doing is we're trying to take a set of money and trying to divvy it. And I don't think our kids, our students, should be left as one of those things, as one of the things that's left out, right? So our children should be the first priority, and we need to make sure Las Cruces Police Department did an excellent job of making sure that those schools were taken care of. And I told my daughter that the day that they came back on Monday, I wasn't worried about that day, but it's Tuesday. it's Wednesday, it's Thursday and Friday, and it's next week. Those are the issues that we need to take care of. The person that made that threat's not going to happen on Monday. There's people around, it's wide known. But Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I got to make sure that my daughter's protected, and I wouldn't give anything less for my daughter than I would for the other, your children and the parents here in Las Cruces Public Schools.
Mr. Balcazar.
Yes, thank you, Kelly, for that question. We know that the Las Cruces Police Department is experiencing a serious staffing challenge right now. They're down 50, 60 officers. Police personnel have been removed from other duties within the police department to support having officers on patrol on the streets. And that's that's the reality of the situation we're in right now. But the safety of our students, staff, members, and our Las Cruces Public Schools team in the facilities is of utmost importance. Stating that, like I mentioned before, I grew up in San Antonio, Texas. San Antonio Independent School District has its own police force. If that's a possibility, if it's something that we really need to take a serious look at, if we cannot get the police support and protection from our Las Cruces Public Police Department in the near future, we need to take a serious hard look about possibly establishing, funding a police department within Las Cruces Public Schools.
Okay. Ms. Dello.
Thank you. How would you determine your budget priorities?
Mr. Balcazar.
Before I decide to make any expenditure of a taxpayer's hard-earned money, the one question I'm going to ask to myself is, how is this expenditure going to directly improve student proficiency and contribute to student excellence? If the data is not showing that a program or an expenditure directly contributes to the classroom performance of our students, then I will not support that expenditure. That's how I will prioritize spending in our budget.
Okay, thank you.
My
Yes,
turn,
sir.
right? Thank you for the question. You know, there's a couple of things. One is our goal and our vision. You have to have a goal and you have to have a vision in order to set your budget, just like you do at home. If your goal is to do something, then this is what you need to do, and just like that, you have to, and that's where it comes in. One of the things that we do is when we put our goals and our vision out, we get the community feedback, and so we've asked you, as a parent, have filled out what your priorities are. And you filled that out online, and we were able to gather all of that data, and we were able to look at it and make sure that those priorities were exactly where the people wanted them, and that was working with them. And so I think that was very, very important that we were able to do that. Now, one thing I commend Mr. Balcazar about talking about asking the question, and that's exactly what you would need to do if you don't know. You need to ask somebody what they think. That's going to be the difference in my case. I know what those priorities. As an educator, as having friends with people that are in the education field, I don't have to ask that question. I know exactly what that money will do to impact early childhood education. I know exactly what that money will do to impact community schools and be able to expand community schools. So those things are very, very important to me. But in my first year as a board member, I had to ask those questions too. And when it's out of my realm, like the budget, I'm not a big budget person, I had to ask those questions too. But if you have to ask the question about how it's going to impact in the classroom, that worries me a little bit. I know what's going to happen, and I know exactly what's going to happen inside the classroom because I am in a classroom. I know exactly what those needs are. Thank you.
Okay. So we are taking questions off of Facebook, and we have a few already that are on there. Some of these questions, we're trying to ask both the candidates, but I'm encouraging you both to take a look at the page and see the questions that the viewing public is asking. We have one question here from Ms. Hall, and it asks, how are you going to ensure that staff are following policy when it comes to our children? Too many teachers and principals not following the rules. Mr. Jaramillo.
Perfect. And I hope you don't mind. I think it's important that that I give my email out. So if not only can you ask these questions via this platform, but please email me. You're more than welcome to at rjaramillo1@lcps.net. And email me those questions. I usually get back with you within a certain hour. I do work and do that, but that's one way. The question that she asked as far as how would we make sure that policy or how would we make sure that teachers are following policy, we can't. And it's plain and simple. If I do, it's breaking the law, and it's actually goes against everything that a school board member is responsible for. It's out of my lane, so to speak. What I can do is make sure that I'm overseeing the superintendent's position and the superintendent's job and what he's doing. And so obviously we get some of those things feedback, but if I ever come into that lane, then it's a direct violation of what the Las Cruces Public Schools Board of Education, what we have authority over. Good question, though.
Mr. Balcazar.
Thank you for that question. I also agree that being that the superintendent is the one employee that the school board has the authority to hire and ensure and they have accountability, oversight over the superintendent. It's important when issues are happening with teachers and staff that we address those issues with the superintendent and ensure that the superintendent is taking appropriate action to address those issues.
Okay, thank you. All right, and with that, Ms. Bloomfield.
Can you speak for a moment to the parents like me, who are reasonable mostly and level-headed, who have felt that for the past 4 years our voices have been ignored, our emails cast away in a drawer while we are patted on the head and asked to sit in the corner while the experts do the real work? We are tired, we are disillusioned, we are frustrated, and yes, at times we are a little bit angry. What do you want us to know, or what do you have to say to us?
Mr. Balcazar.
I want to let the parents of students in Las Cruces Public Schools District 1 know, and all parents of students in Las Cruces Public Schools know, that I will be your true advocate on the school board. I will bring you back to the table. I will take your input seriously. I won't take your emails and just file them away. As I will take them seriously. It's time that us as school board members realize that parents are the customer of the public school. They are entrusting the public school with the education of their children. So we must make them a part of the education system. We must listen to them. When they are passionate about something, we must take them seriously. We must not presume that we already know what the answer is. We need to remember that we're public servants, and as such, we serve at the will and the behest of the parents and the community members of Las Cruces.
Mr. Jaramillo.
I'm a big believer in relationships, so we can always be better at relationships. We can always get better at making sure that parents and things are heard, parents and communities are heard. I am the parent. I am a stakeholder. I have the privilege to sit behind the dais and cast a vote, but I am you. I am a parent. And one of the things that I think that is important to you and important for your question is that you have a right to be frustrated. You absolutely do. And what we have, we've been dealing with some very difficult situations right now, and the parents and the community is a huge stakeholder in what we do, and we need to make decisions. When we put out a survey and we don't listen to it, I think it sets the wrong tone. I think it's so, and I've said that. Parents have my cell phone. It's not, you can Google my name and you can have it. You can have direct access, not to a cell phone that doesn't ring. It has it to my phone right here. People see me at Albertsons, and we're talking school. My poor family, I go try to watch a movie and I get delayed back, with popcorn and stuff because people are letting me know their concerns. I am always available. And I work in the community. I work with the children, hundreds of children that I work with on a yearly basis that go off to the public schools. So those parents already know how I deal with their situations at the child care center that I'm the director at, and I just carry that on to the Las Cruces Public Schools. So I am very available, and as you know, so thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're going to take a break, but I just want to remind all of us that November 2nd is the day that we get out and vote for the Las Cruces City Council, for our municipalities like Hatch, Sunland Park, Anthony, our school board here in Las Cruces, the water and conservation boards. So November 2nd is when we get out and vote. This is our voice. This is an opportunity for us to have a voice and who's going to bring us what we want in the school district and in our city councils. With that, I'd like to go ahead and just say, take a break, give a little shout out to Southwest Organizing Project, 3A Research, and the Las Cruces channel. We'll be right back. Thank you. Woo!
I'm so
redness, burning, itchy feet. You may be suffering from athlete's foot and be eligible for a clinical trial. 3A Research is conducting a clinical trial of an investigational drug for treating athlete's foot. This is a 6-week study. We will compensate your time, travel, and reimbursement of up to $225. Contact our office, 3A Research with Michael Raucci.
Call our offices today for more information. Serving El Paso and now open in Las Cruces. I hope to see you soon.
Welcome back to the Las Cruces Election Candidate Forum here at the Las Cruces channel, being streamed live on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm Arturo Uribe, here today with the candidates for Las Cruces School Board District 1, Mr. Ray Jaramillo, Mr. Abelardo Balcazar, and our commentators, Ms. Priscilla De La O and Ms. Kelly Bloomfield. So we are taking questions from the folks out there that are watching us live on Facebook. Keep the questions coming. Thank you very much for your participation, and I will do my best to answer those questions. We are encouraging the candidates to come back and look at these questions so that they may answer the questions we were not able to ask. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and give the opportunity to Ms. De La O for the next question.
Thank you. There's a concern that during the superintendent-principal meetings, what is agreed upon is then left to the principal's interpretation, which has caused a lack of consistency across the district with regards to COVID mandates. Currently, the teachers get the notes from the principals and are not receiving the updates directly. How would you suggest enforcing mandates district-wide and improving communication at all levels? Is there a better way to communicate to the teachers what is discussed and agreed upon during the superintendent and principal meetings?
Mr. Jaramillo.
That's a great question, and I'm afraid that I'm not going to give you the answer that you want or need right now, because that isn't part of our duty. So what happens in the principal meeting, if I was to step into that and say, hey, you know what, this needs to happen, it's a direct violation of what a school board member role is. And so what we can do, though, in a superintendent's evaluation, which I've been in part of for 2 superintendents, is to make sure that what we are hearing from the community and any of those issues that we're hearing, that we are able to relay those issues to the superintendent. But really, the superintendent's job is to do that. The only person that we are in charge of is hiring and firing of the superintendent. So, if they are, if the teachers feel that they are not being heard, or they're not getting that communication down, then that's something that we would need to take care of in a superintendent's evaluation. But it's not something that we would, we are not privileged to being in that, nor do we want to be in there, because like I said, it would be a direct violation of the 5 things that the school board members are in charge of. And one of them would the direct access to teachers or what is happening on the day-to-day basis is not something that a school board member should be doing.
All right, thank you. Mr. Balcazar.
Ms. De La O, could you repeat the question, please?
Of course. So there's a concern that during the superintendent-principal meetings, what is agreed upon is then left to the principal's interpretation, which has caused a lack of consistency across the district with regards to the COVID mandates. Currently, the teachers get the notes from the principals and are not receiving the updates directly. How would you suggest enforcing mandates district-wide and improving communication at all levels? Is there a better way to communicate to the teachers what is discussed and agreed upon during the superintendent and principal meetings?
Mandates is a very contentious issue. Right? I'm concerned that mask mandates, vaccine mandates, etc., have become very politicized. We need to always take into account when we're mandating certain health things, the risk involved with the mandate. Are we actually addressing a substantial risk? That's very important. In addition, when it comes to communication between the superintendent and the teachers, it's the ultimate goal for the mandates is we need to keep our schools open. We need to keep our schools open. The research shows that in-person learning is so much more beneficial to a student than distance learning. The challenges of COVID have created learning loss for our students, and it's learning loss that we may never recover from, and the students may never recover from. The mandates are what they are. They may be controversial amongst people, but the end goal is keep the schools open. And whatever the communication needs to be between the superintendent and staff to keep schools open for our children, that's what we should be focusing on.
Thank you. We got a question off of Facebook Live coming from Mr. Favela. He's asking, every election, the school district asks for the citizens to approve a bond. Looking at the school budget, do you feel that the district is top-heavy with administrative staff? Do you feel some administrative positions can be eliminated and move that money into the classroom? Mr. Balcazar.
I believe that the budget for our education is created for spending in the classroom. The classroom is where the education happens. We need to be very careful about creating positions just for the sake of creating positions. The question again, how does this position that we're creating and this staff member that we're paying the salary to, how does that staff member's work directly contribute to student proficiency in academics, and how does it directly contribute to student excellence? If it cannot be shown to me that a position and the salary expenditure for that position directly contributes to those goals, then in my opinion, that position should not exist.
Mr. Jaramillo.
I think it's important to differentiate between the two things that that person was asking on Facebook. First, the bonds, and then the budget into the classroom. So the bonds are special. The bonds are for things like building buildings and that sort of stuff like that. And that money has to go directly to that. So there are two differentiations between what that person was asking, kind of two questions within that one question. The second thing is obviously, like Mr. Balcazar said, absolutely. If there's positions that shouldn't be there, then that's something that we need to entrust that the superintendent is able to do and make those decisions, whether to collapse them, whether to expand. But really, that's our job as when we hire a superintendent. He needs to understand the goals of our district, the goals of the parents as a stakeholder, the goals of, and we have to take into account the unions as a stakeholder. They're a big part of that stakeholder, but they are one part of that stakeholder. There's several of those stakeholders. And so when we take those things into account and we make sure that that money is going into the school, then it is our job as school board members to make sure that the superintendent is following the goals and the vision. When that gets awry, then that's something that we have to take over and take into account. And that is done through an evaluation, that is done through contract extensions, that is done through firing and looking at another school board or a superintendent, if that is the way that should go. But as a school board member, you're one of five, and we never act alone. We act as a board. That's the only time we have power, is as a board. It's never one person. So if I say I was going to do something like that, it's not. I have one voice. I have one vote, but the school board acts as a whole.
Thank you very much. I have a question. Ms. Bloomfield, go ahead.
There are very few people in our state that you would hear, at least in the southern part of the state, sing the praises of the New Mexico Public Education Department in every aspect. So I have a question. We've heard much in our area about the need for local control rather than a top-down approach from the state. What does that look like to you? Or what would that look like to you?
Mr. Jaramillo.
And I just want to I don't mind answering that question, but I think I answered the last one first, but if it's totally up to you.
Mr. Balcazar.
Okay, how it looks down, local control. Currently, there's the needs of our community are unique to the needs of community members in Albuquerque, unique to the students' needs in Santa Fe, compared to the students' needs in the Four Corners area. So that's why it's very important that local school boards have the authority to mold the education in their local communities based on the needs, the demographics, whatever it may be, of the community that they represent. When things happen, like what happened to the Floyd School Board, that they were disbanded by an MPED, and and an unelected appointed official is now in charge of the schools in that small town, that's a concern. School board members are elected officials. The NMPD shouldn't have that much power over school. How can we make decisions in good conscience and focus on the needs of our community when those decisions could cost us our position on the board? Look, right now, the Las Cruces Public School has 2 advisory committees, financial and audit. We need more advisory committees, curriculum, discipline. The more advisory committees we have where all stakeholders are involved in the development of the education system for our local community, the better the outcomes for our students.
All right. Mr. Jaramillo.
I think Ms. Balcazar and I will definitely agree that we obviously are going to be both advocates for local control. I think, and I'll be flat out honest with you, Kelly, I think the problem and the issue is that you know, up at the state level, they've had a lot of changes at the top as well. And so, and I don't necessarily think that, although I just met with Secretary Steinhaus, and we've established a wonderful relationship, and I think that what you are feeling as far as local control, I think will be a little bit, I expect a lot better under his term. But we had some people at the higher education and actually at the public education department that may not have understand totally what that meant. I can be honest with you and tell you, Kelly, that the way you're feeling is because PED's local control was good this week, maybe not next week, and I've spoken out about that. I've spoken out about, you know, when if you're going to have local control, you need to have local control. The only thing that I would differentiate with Mr. Balcazar on this is that with the Floyd situation, it was directly against our governor's mandates. And so that's a little bit different than being able to control the curriculum and things. They set the policy up just like a school board does at the top, and then it gets implemented down at the school level. The public education department sets those policies up on top, and then it should allow the districts to be able to implement those the way they see. And there's a lot of different issues as far as budgets, curriculum, textbooks, all of those things are going to be vital in that. But directly breaking the law, that's something that may not necessarily be up for local control.
Okay, thank you. We have another question from the viewing public. There's a lot of comments in there, but this question I've heard from numerous parents and folks across the state. But the question that I see here that I would like to ask is, they want to know why we are consistently last place academically here in New Mexico. Mr. Jaramillo.
That is a tough question. That's a systemic question, right? That's something that is deep in what we've been doing for many, many years. To be honest with you, I'm going to rely on my early childhood background to answer this question. What I believe is that we need to give the children the necessary tools to be able to be successful in life. I think for a long time our teachers have had handcuffs on them and had to perform to be able to get the data and the results to be able to keep their job. They've had to do that over and over again, and I think that's the way we've been making our system. It's a systematic way of doing these. I think COVID has allowed us to re-envision the way education can be delivered, whether it be delivered through online learning or being able to deliver in multiple different ways. And I think it's going to be important that we take what we've learned in COVID and don't be afraid to blow up our system. We're 50th. What do we have to lose? I think though, but in order to break systematic things, we have to have big changes. And I think being able to do this online and what we've learned through COVID and how we're going to be able to do that and meet the needs of children, all children, not just children that are in school, maybe some of them are online, but really be able to give children the necessary tools through their lens. And that's one of the things that I know will probably come up, JBC, and being able to give the children the necessary tools that they can see themselves in the education, in their own textbooks. So,
Mr. Balcazar.
I believe we're mired in 50th in education. We're 50th, mired in 50th in education in the country because we don't tap into the talents and the innovation of our teachers. Our system is very over-standardized. It's very cookie-cutter. We don't focus on the individual needs of each student. We group students into groups based on their demographics instead of taking each student at their level and addressing that individual student's needs and allowing the teacher to use their talents and use their innovation to meet each individual student's needs as best as possible. We need to open ourselves up to as many ideas and techniques as we need to open ourselves up to meet those needs of the individual student. We cannot continue this cookie cutter approach. It has not worked. It continues not to work. The numbers show it, and it's time that we start thinking outside the box, trusting our educators that they know what's best for their individual students in the classroom, not a public education department of appointed officials in Santa Fe.
Thank you. Mrs. De La O.
Thank you. Teachers are suffering burnout district-wide. While there are funds for educational assistance and parental educational assistance, not all teachers have them and are forced to do the work of 3 positions without compensation for the extra work. I have been told by some teachers that substitute teachers earn more than full-time educators, prompting many to consider resigning from their full-time positions to pursue substitute roles. How would you address the workload disparity in compensation for such situations?
Mr. Balcazar.
Could you please repeat the question, the last part?
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
So teachers are suffering burnout district-wide. While there are funds for educational assistance and parental educational assistance, not all teachers have them and are forced to do the work of the 3 positions without compensation for the extra work. I've been told by some teachers that substitute teachers earn more than full-time educators, prompting many to consider resigning their full-time positions to pursue substitute roles. How would you address the workload disparity in compensation for such situations?
When it comes to compensation for teachers, that is where the role of the teachers' unions comes in. The teachers' unions need to make sure that they're advocating for the teachers, that they and working with public school administration and the school board to ensure that the teachers have fair compensation, fair benefits, and fair work conditions. A teacher that's burned out is not going to be effective in the classroom. Okay. So we need to get them the help they need. I remember when my children were young and they were in the elementary grades. I was serving in the Navy. We were living in California at the time. But they had a very robust parent volunteer corps that worked in the schools with the teachers. That gave the parents, that gave parents that were available to be an active part in their child's education, and also give a support staff to the teachers that didn't cost the school district any money. We need to be looking at building a potential volunteer corps that would go in and be able to help teachers with some of the burdens that they're placed on outside on top of the instruction. And if the money's there for these positions, for assistant positions, we need to make sure that money is allocated, because that is money that's going to the classroom, and that's money that directly improves student outcomes and academic proficiency.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Jaramillo.
I think that's a great question, and it can be answered simply. Teachers are not paid and valued right now. That's why they're feeling the frustration. That's why the teachers in New Mexico are suffering from teacher shortages. So we have to value and we have to make sure that our teachers are compensated. With that being said, We also need to compensate the people, the support staff. So we're talking about the people that are answering the phones. We're talking about our nurses. We're talking about the men and women that are that are cooking our children's meals. What about the bus drivers? So all of these components are part of that that feeling of distress that teachers are feeling right now. They're feeling overwhelmed. And how are we going to be able to do that? We're going to need to do that by minimizing class size. How do we minimize class size? By making sure that we have more teachers. So we have to be able to put our money where our mouth is. We have to value educators. And I say educators meaning teachers and those janitorial staff and the school bus drivers and the secretaries and those that are feeding those. And one of the things, it's not the union's job. I mean, it is their union's job to be able to do that. But it's my job as a school board member to do that. It's my job as a parent to advocate for this, to legislatures, to all sorts of different people at the state level, local level, and make sure that our teachers are valued. And one way that we're going to be able to show them value is by making sure that they are paid the wage that they deserve, and by taking off the handcuffs and allowing them to teach, allowing them to have the autonomy of making sure that they're able to do what they need to do in their thing. When we do that, then we'll start being able to see the curve and be able to see the success of the teachers not being able to feel overwhelmed and overworked.
Okay, thank you. And thank you. We're coming to the end of the show, and we're going to allow our candidates to ask a question of themselves, and then for our commentators to follow back if they need to ask a question, or to have the candidates elaborate on a question they may not have answered. But just know, like, I'm listening and seeing the comments here. It's very difficult to be able to ask all the questions. We're doing the best we can. That's why it's so awesome to be able to engage in our community centers, at our halls, and in our fire stations, where we can have you, the viewing public, ask the questions yourselves. I'm asking questions that I feel that apply to both the candidates. But again, I'm encouraging both of you to come back, look on this Facebook channel page, and there's a lot of great questions. We just don't have the time to ask all the questions that are being asked. So I am listening to you, Mr. Bolnick and Mrs. Carbajal. Thank you for your questions, but hopefully the candidates will ask them when they look back on this page. With that, I want to give an opportunity to you, Mr. Jaramillo, to ask a question of Mr. Balcazar.
Perfect. So I just want to say thank you once again to Mr. Balcazar. I heard a lot of good things in what he said tonight. Things that we've already been doing and supporting. CTE. He talked about individuality. He also talked about keeping schools open, and we know that wearing masks is going to be able to keep our schools open. So I appreciate that. So my question would be to Mr. Balcazar. One of us is going to be in that position come January. If I was to win, how are you going to work? How are we going to work together to make sure that we do everything that we needed to do? Because I don't represent 50% of the population. I represent 100% of the population. You're running because you're frustrated. And so I want to ask you, how are we going to work together to be able to accomplish, because our goals are the same. Sometimes we get there a little different. Our goals are the same. How are you and I hope you continue to advocate if I win, and if you win, how, I guess I'm not going to answer my own question, but how are you going to continue to work with me if I'm the winner?
Well, I'm a chapter leader of a local chapter of the Foundation for Against Intolerance and Racism, and they advocate for having an education system that focuses on academics and not on pro-human values. So as long as we can work, we will be able to work together, because I want to advocate for students to be taken as individuals, students shouldn't be looked at through the lens of race or other characteristics that have nothing to do with education. So in my canvassing during this campaign, there's a lot of members of the community, parents, community members, are concerned that our education system has has been politicized. We need to keep the politics out of our education. And I just believe one of the motivating factors for me to run for this school board is that a lot of the decisions that have been made by the current school board have been very political and not academic in nature. So if for some reason I don't win this election, I will continue to be an advocate for students. I will continue to be an advocate for pro-human values in our education system.
All right, thank you. Mr. Balcazar, it's your opportunity to ask Mr. Jaramillo a question.
Okay, Mr. Jaramillo, early on in your current term, there was a recall effort against you by a community group, against you and 2 other board members for alleged lack of transparency and not being open with the public. A judge ruled that it had merit and it should move forward, but it has been held up in the courts since 2019. Why should the voters of District 1 trust you with another term when a legitimate recall petition is still unresolved?
That's a great question, and I appreciate you asking that question. So it actually went up to the Supreme Court, and because it has not been acted on, it's pretty much dead. So it's not there. If we had done anything wrong, I believe that the Supreme Court would have come down and acted fast. There wasn't anything wrong, and when 3 school board members are in, or 5 school board members are in a courtroom together, when the judge says that that's a violation of the Opens Meeting Act, then I believe that judge has no idea what the Opens Meeting Act is. We can be at graduation together. We can be at a restaurant together. We can be at an award assembly together. We can be at a funeral together. But that is not a violation of the Opens Meeting Act. And so when he said that, it told me that he had no idea what the Opens Meeting Act was. Because if that was the case, then every school district at graduation would be in violation of the Opens Meeting Act. And so it went nowhere. And as you know, the people that brought that litigation went away as soon as the superintendent went away. As you know, this is, like Mr. Balcazar said, it is become a lot politicized. And when you want to get rid of a superintendent, the only way to do that is to get rid of what? The school board. And so these people came to me often and said, Ray, this has nothing to do with you. This has nothing to do with you, but it's the only way. They were upset at the superintendent, not at the school board. And so as you know, I've continued my term. This was one of the hard things that I had to do when somebody takes a direct attack at your reputation. But I went through that. I did it. I sat there, I answered all the questions, and I'm still here. And I still continue. So why do the voters want to do that? Because I've went through some hard times through 4 years, and I'm still here, and I'm a volunteer, not getting paid for this job. That's why you should vote for me.
Thank you. All right, this is an opportunity for our commentators to circle back on some questions if they felt that they weren't answered to their surprise, or you really have a strong question you want to ask. Ms. Bloomfield.
Quickly, you have made comments, Mr. Jaramillo, and Mr. Balcazar, I want you to answer this too, about the narrow scope that the school board has in what they can do. Being a little bit familiar with the way that you interact with the superintendent and with the school district, can you expound a little bit more, both of you, Mr. Jaramillo, on how you have, and Mr. Balcazar, on how you would cultivate and develop the relationships with the superintendent so that when things come up like Mrs. De La O was talking about, you have the relationship to go to the superintendent and say, hey, what are you doing about this? This is a problem. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. And so obviously relationships are important, and developing that relationship is how you can have tough conversations. Many people in the public know that I've had tough conversations, and yet we're still able to meet and talk and that sort of stuff after. So being able to establish it, that's number one. Number two is I don't have power, I have privilege. And the privilege is I'm able to send a text message to our superintendent, and guess what? He responds to me back really quick. I still have to be very careful in telling him what to do versus telling him what we need to see as a board. I am a board member, and so our board acts as one. And so my job is to, at the time of evaluation, I can express those examples. And maybe other board members have examples, and that's where we would reevaluate on the superintendent. So I think it's very important that we establish a relationship, that we're able to have tough conversations, and then I'm able to use my privilege, not my power, my privilege to be able to help and support the families, the community, and the students, just like my daughter, just like your daughter, just like your son, just like all of the people that are here that attend Las Cruces Public Schools. So it's all about relationships. The relationships are the foundation of everything.
Mr. Balcazar.
Yes. Kelly, I believe you're a member of the Parent Advisory Council at Oregon Mountain High School. Well, that's the best way to get issues that are going on in schools out, is to empower those parent advisory councils. There's a policy that states that there will be parent advisory councils in every school. We should give that parent advisory council time and a voice in board meetings. So these issues that are being raised by parents utilizing the parent advisory council can be addressed out and openly and transparently. We should try to, when an issue is brought by a parent, we should be as transparent and open with the solution and with the problem. For too long, it's been done behind closed doors, without knowledge of what is actually how it's being addressed, and what the solutions are to issues that are being brought by parents in the schools. We need to empower and have and right now the budget, currently the budget only spends 1% on parental outreach. That is way too little. So we need to invest more in parental outreach to empower those parent advisory councils at each school, so they're active and they're influential in the problems solving of issues in our schools.
Thank you. Ms. De La Hogue, this is your opportunity to circle back.
Thank you. On the topic of social workers, there are areas where parents and students' mere survival is priority as they face homelessness and food insecurities. Would you recommend more social workers be placed in schools that are in lower income areas to help address these issues?
Mr. Balcazar.
Yes, I mean, if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the most important needs are survival needs: food, shelter, health, etc. It's going to be very hard for a child to be able to focus on education when they're hungry, when they don't have a stable home environment, when they may be in a violent home situation. So we need to be able to have a partnership with social workers and other agencies that provide that type of support for our students. Because without the basic needs, if the basic needs aren't met, a child cannot achieve academic success and excellence.
Thank you.
So, do I get an answer?
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Balcazar, absolutely, your child cannot learn unless your basic needs are met. Basically, that's saying you support JBC, because what that is, in the Yazzie Martinez case, they said we were not doing this. And so how do we become 50th in the state is because we don't address those needs. We can do anything we want in our budget and anything, but if we don't address, just like he said, the individual needs, just like policy JBC says, and meeting the needs of the children across the board and giving them the necessary tools. There was a lawsuit, Yazzie Martinez, that said New Mexico was not doing this. He just said, that's exactly what we need to do. I have my name on that policy that he just said, I need to do it. So my name is on the policy JBC, just like he said, and that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. That's exactly what I've done by signing and putting my name as the president of policy JBC, is making sure that we address the systematic changes, the systematic things, so we can bring New Mexico out of 50th of the nation. But just like he said, if they're surviving, learning doesn't take place. We have to create a healthy, safe environment. Once we do that and children's basic needs are met, then learning can happen. So I totally agree with him. I totally think that he, like I said, he honored me, so to speak, and on our board by saying JBC is exactly what we need. Thank you.
May I have an opportunity to rebut that?
No. And I would normally let you, but
Yes.
we're on a time schedule. But I think this is a great opportunity to just see, like, these are the types of conversations we need to be having. All of us in our community, the voters, we need to think of ways and how do we engage with those candidates that are asking for our votes. In our communities and working with the organizations like Southwest Organizing Projects, we're brought up and learn to do house meetings where we come together inviting candidates to come to speak with us. Most of the time it's one-on-one with each of the candidates. Then we bring them into our community, so a church hall, a fire station, where we bring the candidates, and our community and those residents and voters have an opportunity to ask questions. Because of the pandemic, we just weren't able to do that these last two election cycles. And this election cycle right now, also, we haven't been able to engage with our candidates that are asking for our votes. We, the voters, need to change that. We need to strategize together. We need to work with all of us, no matter the opinions. We're divided. We're so divided right now. I worked real hard on identifying commentators, that have different perspectives. And I'm very proud of my commentators. Ms. DeLo, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Ms. Bloomfield.
Thank you.
It's us, the parents, the voters, that are making the decisions for our community when the candidates are asking for our votes. This space is for us and you, the viewing public. I want to say thank you to all of you participating. I'm sorry I couldn't ask all the questions. There's some great questions in here. I want to say thank you both as candidates. It's very brave to come on something where you're live and be able to answer and take these questions. I thought you guys did a great job, and I wish you both good luck on your campaign.
And I just want to say thank you to Mr. Balcazar, and I appreciate the respect and what he's doing in the campaign and everything like that. And his passion, whoever wins, we're going to work together. So,
Mr. Balcazar, would you like to say anything?
Yes, I also would like to thank Mr. Jaramillo for the candid conversation and for the willingness to address the voters.
Well, with that, I'd like to just say thank you to the viewing public. I'd like to say thank you to our sponsors, 3A Research, Southwest Organizing Project, and the Las Cruces channel. If it wasn't for the Las Cruces channel, we wouldn't have this opportunity. I look forward to seeing you guys out on November 2nd. You can early vote before that, up until this Saturday. Get out and vote, and thank you very much, Las Cruces.
Redness, burning, itchy feet. You may be suffering from athlete's foot and be eligible for a clinical trial. 3A Research is conducting a clinical trial of an investigational drug for treating athlete's foot. This is a 6-week study. We will compensate your time, travel, and reimbursement of up to $225. Contact our office, 3A Research with Michael Raucci.
Call our offices today for more information. Serving El Paso and now open in Las Cruces. I hope to see you soon.